Back when Smash Ultimate was first revealed in March of 2018, there was only one thing I wanted: an Undertale character in the game. Specifically Sans at the time. Many people accuse me of being a thoughtless memer, but like many, I was simply holding out hope for a fighter from my favorite game of all time to make it into the largest crossover ever made. I didn't think it was likely to see any sort of Undertale representation in Ultimate, but similarly to the monsters in the Underground, I held on to my hopes and dreams, desperately pleading that Sans could defy all logic and become a fighter. And as you all know, that didn't exactly work out. Yes, I'm grateful that Toby Fox's masterpiece is represented in Smash somehow, but it hurt to see Sans deconfirmed nonetheless. After that, my dream of having an Undertale fighter in Smash plummeted substantially. My Fighters Pass Volume 2 prediction video had a distinct lack of Undertale, as I feared being played for a fool once more by Sakurai's fiendish hand. But something happened recently. Something that not only reignited my dreams of receiving an Undertale fighter, but also made me think that it might actually be possible. So, enough dilly-dallying. Let's get into why I think Frisk from Undertale has a good chance to be in Smash Ultimate's second Fighters Pass. Before we start this video, I think it's important that we lay down some ground rules detailing what we know about this pass. Number 1. Nintendo picked all of the characters. Number 2. Sakurai still has final say on whether he can make the character work, as seen in this tweet. If we're going into educated guess territory, I would assume that he also has some sort of presence in the choosing process, even if small, considering he's the director of the game and series, but that's not something we know for sure. And number 3, there are no rules. A lot of confusion was caused by people misinterpreting what Reggie said at the 2018 Game Awards. Many thought that he said that the Fighters Pass would only bring new series into Smash, when what he really meant was that they were only bringing new characters, essentially stating the obvious. Unless we've gotten conclusive statements from Nintendo or Sakurai themselves, we cannot use it as conclusive evidence. I'm looking at you, spirits deconfirmers. So, with that all out of the way, what makes me think that Frisk is so likely when there's hundreds of thousands of characters out there to choose from? What makes me think that they can take one of the few slots available? Well, there's actually quite a few reasons. The first thing I want to go over is Sakurai's relationship with Toby Fox. Would Sakurai himself add Frisk to Smash? Toby Fox, an indie developer mind you, went to Sakurai's home, played Smash Bros with him, and got driven back to the airport as the two listened to Ultimate's soundtrack. We've never heard of Sakurai having a friendly relationship of this kind with any non-Nintendo developer. Sakurai's also played Undertale, which is a pretty huge honor to have from someone who's that busy, and has taken note of the game's insane popularity. If it were up to Sakurai, I think it would be pretty safe to say that an Undertale fighter is pretty likely. But unfortunately, like I said before, Sakurai has little to no say when it comes to DLC fighter selection, so our question has to be transformed. While would Sakurai put Frisk in Smash is still an important query, would Nintendo put Frisk in Smash is much more relevant. After all, they're the ones making the character picks. What would Nintendo gain from adding Frisk to Smash? Well, quite a lot actually. Undertale is incredibly popular, and despite people's opinions of it, has a ginormous fanbase. Bringing this community over to Smash through the addition of an original fighter, stage, and new music tracks could see a substantial increase in not just pass sales, but in game sales as well. The inclusion would of course also benefit Toby Fox immensely, especially since his new game Deltarune is still in development and will be released in a few years' time. And speaking of Toby Fox, did I mention that he has a greater connection to Nintendo than any individual indie dev ever has? Because he has a greater connection to Nintendo than any individual indie dev ever has. Not only did he compose most or all of the soundtrack in Game Freak's Town, he also made a track for Sword and Shield, which, despite the controversy, is on track to be one of the Switch's best-selling titles. Yes, I know Game Freak isn't Nintendo, but regardless, this man has been closer to the big end than anyone has ever been, or maybe ever will be. We've even seen Nintendo pride themselves in having Toby Fox work on some Switch titles. They know the guy is a big deal in the gaming community, and they have never undervalued his accomplishments. And even ignoring Undertale entirely, having an indie character in this Fighters Pass is really important, at least in my eyes. It shows that Nintendo isn't just going after the biggest, most powerful names in the community, but also cares about the little guy. I mean, Undertale is far from little, but you see the point I'm trying to make. But Professor Pro, you ask, why would they add Sans to a Mii costume if they plan to add Frisk as a fighter later on? Well, there's one thing you guys have to remember. These passes were planned out at different times. The characters in the first and second passes weren't all picked in one fell swoop. We know this because Sakurai stated himself that he originally only wanted 1 or 2 additional characters after the first Fighters Pass finished up. It's very possible that the Sans costume was planned to be released when it did, but something influenced them to consider Frisk as a fighter for the second Fighters Pass later on. And if this is the case, I think we all know what that influence was. The reaction to Sans joining the Smash ranks as a Mii costume was insane. The internet was set ablaze for a Mii costume. A costume got a bigger reaction than 60% of the Fighters Pass. Yes, I will admit that part of that overwhelming response from the community was because of meme purposes, but many of them were also just genuine shock and delight. The fact that an indie character could be represented in such a way after so many said it was impossible was simply unbelievable to some people. Frisk being a fighter wouldn't get as large of a reaction compared to if Sans was a fighter, but Undertale being represented through an actual character would get people screaming nonetheless. All of the stuff I've talked about so far is pretty good evidence for Frisk, but isn't anything superb. I mean, sure, I think I've made a lot of good arguments that could point towards their inclusion, but it feels like there still needs to be that final push. That final big piece of speculative proof that we need to make Frisk a predictable character again. And, luckily for us, we got that piece of evidence just a few days ago. Earlier this week, we got the announcement of 4 Cuphead spirits coming to Smash, being Cuphead, Mugman, King Dice, and the Devil. Now, the interesting thing is that Undertale hasn't gotten any spirits whatsoever, and the Sans costume was released almost half a year before the Cuphead costume. Along with Undertale being more well-known and enjoyed by Sakurai, wouldn't you think that it would have gotten a few spirits as well? Now, there is one thing this situation reminds me of. We got a lot of spirit updates while Smash Ultimate's first Fighters Pass was happening, a lot of them being for recent games Nintendo had released, such as Astral Chain. But there was one game that noticeably missed the mark, being Fire Emblem Three Houses. We would later find out that this was because of Byleth's inclusion as the 5th fighter. Could a similar thing be happening with Frisk and Smash? Undertale spirits being held back so they can release alongside them their stage and all the amazing music tracks they would receive? I'd say it's very possible. I know it might seem idiotic to place so much of my faith on a piece of evidence like this, especially since my entire argument could fall apart if Nintendo decides to randomly announce Undertale spirits. That would deconfirm an Undertale fighter immediately. But I'm gonna keep on hoping and keep on dreaming. I will not give up on Frisk and Smash. I just have to hope that I'm not played like a fool like I was for my favorite skeleton. So, if Frisk was indeed announced for Smash, what spot in the past would they take? Well, I think there are 2 possibilities. The first would be having Frisk as the second character in the pass. This would allow for whoever's the first character to break the ice and then be immediately followed by an indie character of all things. It would be insane. I also believe that the first character in the pass will be revealed at E3 for reasons I've already stated, so this would put Frisk's reveal in the September timeframe, just in time for Undertale's 5th anniversary. The second and more likely option in my opinion is for Frisk to be the 5th fighter in the pass. Not only would this line up with September 2021 for an announcement, once again being close to Undertale's birthday, but it would also put Frisk's Smash release closer to Deltarune's full release. This would allow for them to work better as a promotion for Toby Fox's upcoming title. I also just think that it's likely they would want some distance between the Sans costume and an Undertale character being released. But anyways, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on this. Do you think we might see Frisk or heck, maybe even Chris in Smash? Or do you think none of this makes any sense? Let me know in the comments below. Professor Pro, out.